Has Disney Star Wars finally accomplished something that has not been accomplished in the last 5 years? Did they finally produce a TV show slash project slash movie that has made fans rejoice in happiness, that has made fans finally breathe a sigh of relief knowing that this new installment into the Star Wars franchise is not pissing them off, it's not making them sad, it's not turning them to turn off the TV, and it's not making us as Star Wars fans just be disappointed with Disney and Star Wars as a whole? I do believe that day has finally happened. I do believe this new era of Star Wars is solid enough that we can actually look forward with optimism. We can finally look forward with great wonder instead of looking backwards, instead of looking behind and seeing the terrible mistakes that Disney Star Wars has done and seeing the terrible and horrendous movies slash projects that Disney Star Wars has shown us. Sure, we have seen the likes of Star Wars Andor and Star Wars The Jedi Fallen Order and its sequel, The Jedi Survivor. Those 3 projects slash shows slash movies slash games are very great, but the vast majority of the recent projects Disney Star Wars has put out have been trash. So when I started to see that Star Wars The Skeleton Crew is available and I watched the first 3 episodes, I gave what I thought about the first 3 episodes, and what I thought about those first 3 installments into this new series is that I thought that they were fine, I thought that they were solid, and I thought that they were decent. But this 4th episode that has just dropped made me actually realize that maybe this show isn't solid. Maybe the show is actually good, because this episode, even though there were no action sequences, there were no fight scenes compared to the other 3 episodes, there were no wars, there were no intense battles, it's just that the story that this episode told, it made me realize that yes, this is not only a good episode, but Star Wars The Skeleton Crew is a good series. And we start off where the last episode left off, when Jod, Fern, KB, Wim, and Neil all had to escape that place that Kim, she is trying to send her guards to arrest Jod, because Jod is a former criminal that Kim knew. But when the crew, they now eventually escape and they have the coordinates to Aten to return to their home, and also remember Jod wants that treasure at Aten as well, they go to Aten, but it's not what they think. It's not what we think as well. The place they end up going to, that the coordinates directed them to go, is actually some place that looks familiar to Aten. And we see Neil, he is the first one to notice that, yo, this is not Aten. Like, look at these trees, they are too old. It looks like this place has been infested with vegetation and with war. And we now actually come to realize that they are not at home. They are somewhere that is called Atakin. And this planet Atakin is one of the many planets that the Jedi hid during the Old Republic. So we see that this place Atakin is actually infested with war between 2 factions, the Troiks and the Hattons. Now the Troiks are the good people of this planet. They are the defenders. They are not the salvagers or the warmongers. They are the people that are actually the defenders of this planet. But the Hattons are the colonizers. The Hattons are basically the evil people, the evil regime, and the evil faction of this planet. And we see the main cast, they actually meet some members of the Troiks, but we also notice that some members of the Troiks are children. And when they now bump into each other, at first they were about to get attacked, but then one of the Troik members, her name is Hana, she helps the crew to stay undercover and to not be detected by the Hattons. So when this happens, we see that the crew actually tells Jod to remain at the ship and stay with SM-33 while the crew goes into the Troik territory. And at first, we thought that the crew would be either crucified or be tortured or be imprisoned by the Troiks, but we see that the captain, who is Haina's father, understands that they are children, even though he explains to all of the children that they treat children as they treat the adults. So since they treat children the same way as adults, he tells the children to start learning how to fight, to start preparing themselves for war, because they are, without consent, officially members of the Troiks, because they have no choice. And Haina and her father tells them that if they can help them get this raid, because the Hattons, they stole some resources from the Troiks, if the crew, the skeleton crew, can help the Troiks in this first raid, then they can now show the Troiks this place called, I forgot if it's the Hidden Sanctuary, something like that, where they can find old coordinates to Atakin and to other similar style planets, that they can find these coordinates and go home safely. But we see some character dynamics in this episode that I like, specifically Neil. This episode really made me like Neil's character, because throughout the series we see Neil as this loving person. Neil, he is very nice, very understanding. He is the same as Wim, because they are both gullible, but Neil is more gullible, but Neil's also kinder. He is very nice, and he's just an all-around great guy. And when we now also look at another character that's a part of the skeleton crew, that's Fern. Fern always tells herself that she is Captain Fern, and we see one moment when Haina's father is basically interrogating them at first, and Fern, she stands up so proudly and she now states that she is Captain Fern. So we see her actually go through a character change, because later in the episode we see her having doubts of being captain. We see her having second thoughts of trying to be this captain, trying to be this leader that she really thinks that she is. So both of these two characters, I like how they handled their growth in the episode, because as Neil, he is meeting with Haina and they are bonding with each other. They seem to be liking each other as friends. So we see that Haina notices that Fern is a scaredy cat. We see that Haina notices that Neil is a scaredy cat. That Neil, he's very nice, but he is also not confrontational. But let's actually pivot back to Jod, because Jod, as he is at the ship with SM-33, he notices that SM-33 recognizes this location, and he's trying to make SM-33's memory retrace its steps, but they are now interrupted by the Hattons. And the Hattons, we would think that the Hattons were about to shoot them, because Jod, he literally says, you know what, just shoot me. But this scene now gets cut, because we see that Haina, she has told the crew that you guys have to help us with this raid. And when the day of the raid actually comes, we see that all 4 crew members are scared. KB is scared, Wim is scared, Fern, she is scared but not trying to be scared, and Neil, he is very scared, he is petrified. So we see Neil's character comes into play of him being a scaredy cat. So Haina, as she notices this, she pleads to her father to go along with these kids to be on this raid, because she doesn't want Neil to be alone. She wants Neil to know that he has a friend that will help him do this raid. But before they can even do the raid, Jod, he comes out of nowhere with the resources that they want to actually retrieve and recover from the Hattons. And it was actually shown off screen. I kind of wanted to see Jod actually do the bargain and to bargain with the stolen credits that he stole from Wim inside the ship. I wanted to see that. And as this all ends, because Jod, he has the resources, and the resources are basically all the Troiks needed for this particular moment. The Troiks now reward the skeleton crew with whatever they want. They are now rewarding Jod with whatever they want, and basically they just want to go home. They want to find a way, find coordinates to Atakin. And we see that Hannah, she is not wanting to leave Neil, but she has to because her duties lie at Akron, and she explains to Neil that hopefully when she becomes the leader of the Troik army, that she and Neil can meet each other again. And this was a touching moment where we see, Neil and Hannah share a kiss. So I was like, okay, this show, they are cooking with the way they are writing these characters. And we see Fern's character come into play, her character growth come into play when they reach this hidden enclave. And when they reach this hidden enclave, Fern starts to hyperventilate, Fern starts to panic, she starts to really doubt herself and to really reconsider being the captain of this crew. She does not want to do this anymore. She is so distraught with even causing the whole crew to almost get killed, not once but twice. She is very doubtful of her role of trying to be the captain, that Wim comes to Fern and tries to reassure her that she's doing a great job and she's a great captain. But this is interrupted when SM33, he starts to malfunction, he starts to act up, because remember, SM33, he knows this particular location, and that was what Jod was trying to extract the information from SM33's memory. But SM33 explains to the crew that yes, he has been here before, and his original programmer, he actually programmed SM33 to slaughter anyone that knew about these coordinates. He ripped the coordinates away from this location, and he was programmed to kill anyone that is trying to gain these coordinates. And as he is about to attack the crew, we see Neil's character, his growth has started, because he is no longer a crybaby, he is no longer a wuss and a scaredy cat, and he shows his first proud moment, his first act of courage, by throwing a rock at SM33 and pronouncing himself, basically saying, hey, leave my friends alone, pick on someone your own size. And I like how they are steering both characters, Fern and Neil, because we're seeing real character growth between these two characters. But the episode basically ends at this moment, so we'll have to see what will happen at episode 5. And I'm thinking that this show is actually doing good. This show is actually doing a good job in restoring the feeling to Star Wars fans, because it's been such a long time we have seen a good Star Wars TV show. And I do believe that this episode, it's not solid, it's not decent, it's actually good. It's a good episode. But that's the end of the video, man. What do you guys think of this episode? I'm out. Peace.